Beyond Lumina, Episode 22, Reformation. An emergency alert was broadcast throughout the small, rocky planet of Costia, telling all citizens to flee as soon as they could, because their world was not long for Lumina. Filony had discovered that ascendancy drilling on the planet for a certain important compound was causing ever-increasing groundquakes, and he suspected they would culminate very soon at that rate in the world's ultimate collapse. The Costians were urged to take any extra passengers they could, and the public servants in each city were able to coordinate their efforts somewhat, but an evacuation of this magnitude could only cause panic and chaos. To make matters worse, the majority of Costians had never even been on a ship before, and most did not own one. Nearly all that did would have to take another family along with them, if everyone were to make it off-planet, and that didn't include all of the temple devotees. While Filony stayed with Rini and Shuri and helped those at the Mushroom Grove prepare to leave, Usion assisted the devotees from the Temple of Omnis at the capital. The hangar was rather far, so it took several lengthy gravcar trips to get them all there, especially fighting the frantic and backed-up traffic filled with frightened citizens that stretched the entire way. It was a couple short Ravinian rotations before they finally started nearing the end of the temple evacuation. One of the last ones left was Fodor Blem, who had been adamant the entire time that he was not going anywhere. "This is where Omnis had set us, and this is where I'll stay," he stated to Abo Avila and Usion, who were patiently waiting for the old Fodor. "Who are we to decide otherwise?" Avila motioned for Usion to give them a moment, so he stepped out of the room. "I myself am not sure what to think about this, my son," he began. "I've asked Omnis many times to show me how I can stop what seemed to be inevitable, what we are now experiencing. Photoglass thought that Omnis was urging him to action, telling him this is an appointed time for our release from captivity. I did not believe him. I did not want to believe him. But these things that are happening, they seem to be falling into place in our favor. If not for the Outlanders, all of our people could perish here. I do not know, but I cannot help but get the feeling that there is something to what Glass has been telling me for a while now." "Nonsense," Blem blurted out. I'm sorry, Abo, but really, you cannot be considering taking Photoglass seriously. All of those scavenging trips out to space have gone to his head. He cannot possibly know what he is talking about. If Omnis was going to speak to someone, surely it would be you, my Abo." "I am not sure what to think," Abo Avila confessed. "But in any case, we must leave. I know it will be difficult, but you should not throw your life away here so needlessly. The people will need us more than ever in our new home, wherever that may be." Blem hung his head in sorrow. Leaving Costia seemed impossible. It seemed like it would surely be the fall of their order, and their faith. He didn't want to go, but he knew, as Avila said, there was no choice. He wanted to be the last one to hold out hope and remain at Omnis's temple, but he was afraid that the Outlanders were indeed correct, and he also did not want to be left by himself. He tried to save a little face by citing the reason Abo had just given as his reason for coming along. "Fine, you're right, Abo. I suppose our people are what is most important." Abo gave Blem a warm smile, then called to the mercenary outside the room. "Okay, Usion, it is time now." Usion came back into the room and started approaching Blem. "Sorry I gotta do this, Fodor, but we can't be waiting around. We gotta go." He began to grab Fodor Blem and hoist him over his shoulder. What are you doing, you beast?" Blem shouted. "Unhand me this instant!" "It's all right, Usion," Avila said now. "Fodor Blem has chosen to come with us. We don't need to go with that plan anymore." "Oh, my apologies then, Fodor," Usion said, placing Blem back on the floor and trying to straighten out his robe. Clem pulled away. I'm fine. Let's just get out of here. A Ravinian frigate tore through space as quickly as it could, carrying the recently promoted Lieutenant J and his squad of Ravinian soldiers, along with Aezic, Vala, Zario, Laus, Artis, Grim, and the other Kostian citizens, away from the not-so-pre-space planet of Inagon, where they created some allies, as well as some turmoil. Aezic promised the chief that they would return as soon as possible to finish what they started against the royal ascendancy. Now the group sped in haste toward Kostia, which, according to what information Zario had received, was going to be destroyed soon by the ascendancy for Kostia's transgression of a long-held pact between them and the ascendancy. Before getting too far on their way, Jay tried contacting Azor, Aezic's brother and captain of the Ravinian military, at this point the commanding officer of the entire Ravinian military. Receiving a signal back, Jay opened communications. Captain, come in. How is your mission going? Have you reached Ravina yet? A moment later, Azor's voice came through the bridge's comm system. Jay, it's good to hear from you. We're on Ravina, and we've managed to secure a bunker in Bikaron with the help of some rebels on planet. We also seem to have run in some of Aezic's mercenary friends. What about your mission? Zario, Vala, the Kostians, and Grim were in a different part of the ship. Azor, Aezic called to his brother through the comms. I'm here. It's so good to hear your voice. Where are Ma and Pa and the girls? Aezic, my brother, the captain returned the greeting warmly. Well done, Jay. I guess you were successful. I'll fill you in on everything when I see you, Aezic. For now, we move on to the next phase of the plan. Bring the rest of the fleet to Ravina. Copy that, Captain, replied Jay. But you should know, we also have one of the mercenaries here, along with a lot of others. Ascendancy hostages from Kostia. We're going to have to take a quick detour for them, and it turns out the Ascendancy has plans to annihilate their world. We're on our way to warn them now, then we'll move on with our mission. We don't have many other choices. Fine, but hurry, Azor urged. It doesn't look like they're going to sit back for long and let us remain here, judging by how they're scouting us. We're going to need all the help we can get, and then some. As for the others on board, just make sure they aren't privy to any information, and get them off ship as soon as you can. Just one more thing, Captain. Jay hesitated, looking at Aezic and trying to discern whether or not he wanted Jay to divulge the last bit of information. There's one more we picked up with Aezic on Inagon, a Free World Alliance officer. Have them all searched immediately, Azor commanded. We cannot risk anything at this point. They should have probably been left back on Inagon, but it's too late now. Just make sure that your ship is still secure. We shouldn't talk any further until we're sure that it's safe. Understood, sir, Jay said, and then communications were cut. Sorry, LT, Jay then said to Aezic. I couldn't keep it from him. That's all right, Aezic answered, obviously not happy about the situation, but willing to comply. He himself wasn't sure any longer who to trust, not after all the revelations made known to him by Jay. He couldn't deny that what he was told seemed to fit with the few memories he was able to piece together for himself. Just the thought of meeting Jay again had almost helped his mind break the amnesia. And when he really thought about it, he didn't have much of a solid reason to trust Vala, other than the help she's given him. But couldn't that all just be an act? He kept asking himself. Jay, Aezic, and a couple other Ravinian officers went to the room in which Zario, Vala, and the rest were being held. Sergeant Jay, Aezic, Glaus greeted them when they walked in. Glaus, everyone, Aezic started. I'm sorry we have to do this. Jay has to be sure the vessel is completely secure. These two are just going to do some quick equipment scans, Jay said, referring to the two other soldiers that had come with them. They approached the group with small devices in their hands for detecting technological gear. Grim had already been fully checked and relieved of all military and combat equipment, now more or less a civilian as much as the Kostians. The two Ravinian officers cleared the Kostian citizens first, being less concerned about their potential treachery, then made their way finally to Zario and Vala. Zario looked a bit annoyed, but complied. He was clean. Vala, however, didn't look very confident, her eyes to the floor. As the device passed over her, it registered something along her belt line. "Sir?" The officer turned to Jay and Aezic. Before deciding to search her, Vala pulled a small gadget from behind her belt and handed it to the officer. It was a secret two-way microcommunicator. "I'm sorry, Aezic," Vala began quietly. "It's not what it looks like, though. It's just, I didn't know how to tell you before. I was approached by one of my squad mates when we were on Inagon, and given that so I could reach my commander once again. I never used it, though, I promise you." Aezic didn't even look at her, instead exiting the room, saying to Jay before he left, "Do whatever you need to do, Sergeant." "Well, Sergeant?" Sergeant Major Ty Ravin began to ask the navigator aboard the triptych. "What's the status? From here, that doesn't look good at all." They had reached Bikaron and were nearing the civilian compound. "Sir," the sergeant answered, "the compound had been overrun by what looks to be Ravinian military, along with some other vessels as well. They're not Alliance ships, however. Some are Ascendancy." "Then they must be Ravinian traitors," replied Ravin, "actively helping the Ascendancy against their own citizens, no less." Private Zaopika, seated near the exit with the rest of the fighter squad, save for Vala, shot a concerned glance at her superior, Master Sergeant Maloon. Maloon returned it, Zaopika having already filled her superior in on what she had seen back in Cronus Prime. But she couldn't see why they should doubt what Ravin said. There were both Ravinian and Ascendancy vessels defending the facility, so they had to assume that they were indeed traitorous Ravinians. Ravin opened communications with the commanding officers on world, General Vorian and Captain Hadrid. "General, the enemy seems to have overthrown the Ravinians overseeing the Bikaron bunker. There are more than we can handle. I would say at least a few squads between both the Ascendancy and Ravinian vessels," Ravin said. "It looks like we'll have to send some of our forces down here to deal with this. What are your orders?" "Good work, Major," came the reply of General Vorian. "I will send Lieutenant Feiner to join you with his platoon. Stand by for their arrival." "Aye, aye, sir," Ravin replied. "All right then," he began to his subordinates. "You heard the general. Retreat for now until we make contact with the lieutenant's convoy." Now, with some time to spare, Maloon couldn't take it any longer. She had to know the truth about what happened with Ravin and their superiors. "Sergeant Major," she began, "could I speak to you a moment in private, sir? We haven't had the opportunity since I returned." "Of course, Sergeant Maloon," Ravin replied. "Everyone?" The bridge crew and the fighter squad all left, the two alone on the bridge of the triptych. "What is it? Do you have more to report?" he then asked her when they were alone. "Actually, Major," Maloon began hesitantly, "I was hoping you could trust me enough to tell me what is really going on here. Is there something more that I should know about this war?" "That's a very odd question, Sergeant," Ravin began in reply. "What exactly are you talking about?" "Sir, I know what happened to Captain Vanguard and Lieutenant Merviver," Maloon confessed. Ravin looked at her warily. "And what exactly is it that you think you know, Sergeant Maloon?" His tone of voice frightened Maloon a little. She had never been frightened of Ravin before, in all the years she's known him since her childhood. "My commander," All I know for sure is that you were present with them when they died. Please, will you tell me what is going on? I know you wouldn't have done anything against the Alliance without good reason, sir. After a moment of tense silence, Ravina answered, Okay, Sergeant. You're right. You have earned my trust more than twice over, after all this time. If you trust me, then you must keep this to yourself at all costs. Nobody can be trusted unless I say so. All will become clearer in the future, but for now, know that there is much more happening in Lumina than meets the eye. The battle lines are not as clearly defined as you thought. We are at war with a foe greater than just the royal ascendancy or any other power. We are at war with a force that at its very core seeks the destruction of civilization as we know it. This is no new foe, however. It is one that has existed since before the three major powers were as we know them now. It is this great threat that has brought together long ago those people among which would later arise both the Ascendancy and the Alliance. I, Maloon, my trusted sergeant, am a part of this hidden group that seeks to save civilization. As I said, we cross the boundary of Ascendancy and Alliance. We are known as the Supreme Order. Ravina studied Maloon's reaction, then began again. Now that you know the truth, will you join us, Maloon? Will you truly join me in the fight for good? Maloon answered her father-like figure timidly. Yes, I will join you. Yo, Sarge, Zario said to Jay as he entered the bridge of the Rividian vessel carrying them all toward Kostia. If it's alright with you, I might have a way to contact Kostia now that we're closing in on it. Jay looked at Aezic for his reaction. Aezic gave him a slight nod. Alright, how are you going to do that? Jay then asked Zario. My friends and I have a secret way to contact one another, Zario began. Courtesy of our resident genius. As long as we're in range, I can get a hold of him, and I know he'll pick up. You're sure it's secret? Jay asked. No doubt, Zario replied. Not like it matters too much for you anyway. Our trip to Kostia will throw the Ascendancy off your trail more than anything. Go ahead, Zario, Aezic answered him now. Let's make sure they know what's happening there and give them as much time as possible to evacuate. Gotcha, Zario said, then began inputting something into the communication station. After a couple minutes, he finished whatever he was doing, and an odd ringtone began sounding through the bridge. Did it work? Aezic asked. Then his question was answered over the comms. Zario, is that you? Came the voice of Villainy. Yeah, hey buddy, the mercenary leader replied with a smile. It's great to hear your voice. How are you and Usion holding up there? We're fine, but listen, Villainy started hastily. These guys are in some serious trouble here. I did a little snooping to find out what was up with those groundquakes we were feeling when we got here. They only got worse after you guys left. What I found was almost the same thing we saw on Omulus. Lumina, Zario swore to himself. So that's how they're doing it. Alright then, Villainy. I guess you already know the bad news I was going to share with you. That's good. I assume that means you guys have warned the Kostians already then? That's right, Villainy said. It's been a process, but the evacuation is coming along. I think we can manage to get everyone off-world. I figured we would ask the Brunillian moons for asylum until the Kostians can find a more permanent home. What do you think? Probably our best bet, answered Zario. We'll see you on Kostia soon to help you with the evacuations. No, don't bother, Villainy interjected. There's no reason to risk you all getting caught here as well. We'll be fine. We'll meet you at Brunil. Zario conceded. Okay, if you say so. What in the... They heard Villainy say on the other end. Then they heard what sounded like the Kostian civilians panicking. Usion, get everyone out of the hangar now! Zario, looks like we've got a bit of a situation here, he now said to those aboard the Ravinian vessel. It seems the Ascendancy is onto us, and they don't want the Kostians going anywhere. They sent a few cruisers to deal with us. Don't worry though, just keep on to Bruniel. I think I have a plan. Man, you guys are serious, aren't you? Even after we helped take this bunker in the first place? Hawk was a little annoyed at the Ravinian captain and Aezic's brother, Azor, who had just told the mercenaries that he wanted them to wait in a holding area during the imminent battle with their next enemy. I still don't trust you people, Azor said plainly. But if you can at least comply with my orders now, then perhaps I'll have some reason to do so once we are finished here. If you're genuinely allies, your help is greatly appreciated thus far and in the future. But for now, our mission is too important to slip up after everything we've been through. You must understand, the fate of all of Lumina rests with us, and that is no exaggeration. All right, Hawk yielded. I get it, Captain. We'll do what you say, until you can figure out that we're the good guys too. Let's go, he then said to the others. Valanth, Mecca, and Argyle, and the 4 mercenaries left the control room and went to another location designated for them by Azor, in which they would wait. We shouldn't have expected any less from Zin's brother, Mecca complained when they reached the room. They're just 2 condescending military freaks. Come on now, Mecca, Hawk replied. They aren't all that bad. Besides, the way they're acting, I'd say they really don't know who to trust. Didn't you hear how concerned they got whenever the Alliance ships started approaching? Back in the command center, the Ravinian soldiers and the rebels together planned for the next battle, but they didn't have long to do so. Captain, they're here, said one of the soldiers from the navigation terminal. The Alliance has come. A whole platoon, maybe more. All right then, replied Azor. Everyone to your battle stations. Let's end this. Terror filled the city of Omnis in Kostia, as above the hangar arrived several Ascendancy cruisers, poised to destroy anything and anyone attempting to flee the planet. Many citizens tried fleeing back to their homes, but they were caught up with all the citizens trying to reach the hangar, causing even more chaos to erupt within the cavernous world. Philony found Usion still trying to escort the last of the devotees, and ran over to him with Rini and Shuri in tow. Yo, Usion, get the girls onto one of the ships. I think I know how we might be able to get rid of these party crashers. Get ready to open the hangar and get these ships out of here once you see the signal. What's the signal going to be? Usion asked him. You'll know when you see it. Just be ready, and then wait for me here. I won't be long, Philony replied. Okay, just be careful, Quaz. Usion then led the girls toward the ships, and Philony started heading back toward the city alone on Grabbike. Reaching the Temple of Omnis, Philony went through the main sanctuary to a private section in the back of the complex, where he knew a small private port to be located. Upon arrival, he noticed 2 ships docked there. Some luck is on our side after all, he said to himself. Then, boarding one of the salvaged Kostian vessels, he fired it up and set its autopilot to coordinates leading out of the hangar, and then let it fly. In the meantime, he boarded the other of the 2 small frigates and began on some other technological task aboard the bridge. The first ship was leaving the open hangar bay. Almost immediately, the Ascendancy vessels nearby just outside the Kostian atmosphere saw the ship that emerged from the rocky planet's surface and advanced toward them. As the Ascendancy fleet spread its ranks toward the fleeing ship, they opened fire, quickly destroying it. The lead ship then continued to advance into the atmosphere and toward the still open temple hangar, followed by a convoy of other Ascendancy vessels that sought to pour into the small breach in the tiny world's natural defenses. Watching the action through the Kostian frigate's rudimentary detection systems, Philony set some type of device that he had attached to the control system of the ship, then dashed away as fast as he could to the grav bike, and made a fast exit from the main part of the city. Soon after, as the first of the Ascendancy vessels began to infiltrate the small hangar, Villaini's device detonated within the Kostian ship, causing a catastrophic malfunction across all the vessel's systems. The energy pulse then caused a chain reaction, rendering each of the Ascendancy's vessels useless, one by one. Back at the main hangar, Usion anxiously watched from the control room for some kind of sign from Villainy that he was to release the hangar door. "Come on, Quaz," he thought. "What do you have planned? You could have filled me in a little more." Just then, his questions were answered, as he saw, one by one, each of the Ascendancy vessels outside of the hangar have some type of malfunction and cease all activity. "Oh, Lumina," Usion thought again. "Now that's what I call an escape. He's not going to be happy he had to use it like this, though." Usion then opened the hangar bay doors and initiated the signal for all the ships to launch. He then boarded the one with Rini, Shuri, and the others from the Mushroom Grove, and they waited for Villainy. It wasn't long after that he arrived, and hopping off the grav bike, he boarded the last frigate left and they lifted out, passing all of the helpless Ascendancy ships as they made their way in haste toward the gaseous, triple moon planet of Bruniel.